After
I used to duck behind Jennifer on purpose. I would look in the mirror and just go like this. They can't see me now. See?
too many people, too much.
Here, but
You do it for the children.
which is
You don't need to see me.
So.
Meeting will come to order, the regular workshop meeting for the town council. I'd like to welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I look forward to your input. So with that said, Town Manager Harris, I'll turn it over to you.
Mayor and Council, we'll go through a couple slides tonight and, there it is, the big screen. So for the agenda, we got a pre-budget overview, asking for council conversation, preliminary input, and then some council discussion and direction on the public input on the budget. The budget officer statutory responsibility, current conditions and projections, and the overview of the 26-27 departmental requests, town manager focus. Before I get too far into this, though, as the email that we sent you, we don't have numbers yet, projection revenue from the county, unfortunately, yet. So we did spend a lot of time this weekend trying to work and figure things out and what it looks like going forward. But just so you know up front, we don't have those revenue projections yet to provide to you. Statutory responsibility for the budget officer is the town manager is the budget officer. Proposed budget must be balanced and submitted with the budget message by June the 1st. Public hearing on a proposed budget must be noticed and held prior to the budget adoption. And town council must adopt a balanced budget as proposed or amended by July 1. Our current conditions and projections, building infrastructures and call for service levels, current staffing levels, personnel growth by department, supply chains and equipment delivery delays, recruitment entry-level employees, training certifications, our current projected housing and population numbers, possible need personnel growth by department, strategies to meet service delivery expectations with reduced financial impact, and staffing level comparisons among other jurisdictions. So as we go through this, you'll see some information we put together that'll line up with those. But on the next piece, we're talking about our buildings infrastructure, as we heard last year and years before, where we're at room-wise, when buildings were built, and that's some of the things for those of you that were on council. Last year, we started painting that picture of the needs and the growth, looking at the future of opportunities for building everything from finding land somewhere to relocating town hall, police department, fire stations, or whatever it looked like moving forward. But this time we've identified all the buildings and kind of what room is there. Town hall and community room here. Obviously in the town hall, we're looking at converting one of the file rooms to an office renovation. Possibility of, if we need to expand, as growth happens, what we could do in here, whether we go to the back area and set up some offices there, wall some things off, make this footprint smaller in here. Just trying to think outside the box on what our options are, and what kind of space availability there. For your police department, and again, we'll talk about the ages of these. The buildings, obviously town hall and police together, the building is 25 years old. Downstairs in the police department, they have really no room left for any growth. Our fire department, it's been there 19 years and there's no room for growth there. All the bedrooms and space are already maxed out there. For our public works building, it's 30 years. There's none and no room left there. We'll talk about options for office expansion. If we were able to do anything there, what that might look like, and do we move some type of construction trailer in there if we did need to expand out in that area and keep staff down there. For our water treatment plant, 28 years in service there, with an expansion currently in progress. For our community center, this is where we talk about being able to identify the growth and the needs. Obviously, that community center was only built 5 years ago, and we're already maxed out with that. When we look at space as goals or visions, how many rentals are there, or how much more community event can take place. But with it being full every day, at some point, to start having that on your radar, when do we need to look at expansion there? So, I mean, I don't think we're to that point yet, but just wanted to paint that picture as we go through our building infrastructure, what that looks like on being able to expand, our facilities to accommodate growth as well as provide service delivery needs to our community.
Scotty,
Yes, ma'am.
I do have a question about the community center, the museum space there.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a contract with the museum and the space that's used there? And what are the terms of that agreement?
So there is a lease in place. It was renewed, I want to say about a year ago. But there is some terms that have been built in there that if town council decides that we need that space, there is an out. I don't know how many months, but I'm thinking it's 6 month out. So if we decided we needed to get that space back, there is an avenue to do that before the end of the term. Now, it's usually, I think it's either a 4 or 5 year term.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. For our infrastructure on water lines, we painted some numbers of, in 2020, we were at 67 miles. In 26, we're at 71 miles. For our water meters, 2,801 in 2020. And then in 26, 3,349. For our fire hydrants, 380. And in 26, 658. For streets, in 2020, we were at 20 miles. In 26, we were at 22 miles. Sidewalks were at 6 miles and 6 miles for both of those comparison years. So as you can see there, we are having uptick in numbers and water lines and expansion and and sidewalks is one of the things that come up in our strategic plan for bike, pedestrian friendly, different things. So looking at that aspect, we know with the active Weaverville, I mean, there was some plans and discussions about adding sidewalks and different things. So we know at some point that's going to come in to the budget picture and just wanted to show you what we had expanded and growth that we had taken on. Calls for service, one of the things we did last year, started painting a picture for call volume as community grows and needs. And I'll just do from, as you can see, going through the 10-year progress, but I'll start with 21. But in 21, police was 5,146. Last year, there was 6,560. I'm sorry, 2 years ago, 6,560. And last year, 2025, 7,293 calls for service. So in fire, looking at 2024, 2,255. And in 2025, 2,409. For our utility locates, in 24, we were at 2,332. In 25, we were at 4,238. And for water customers, 1,226 in 24, and in 2025, 1,495.
If I could hold, I was a little bit wrong on our lease with Dry Ridge Museum. We did that in June of last year, and we did in anticipation of a conversation such as this. It was a 2-year agreement. So that is up in October of 26.
Thank you.
Your next slide, we look at current staffing levels and personnel growth by department. We started painting this picture last year to show when we had added staffing. So as we come to you and look at staffing needs, it's a very thought out process and be able to see when staff was added to try to match the growth that is occurring in our area. In administration, in 2015, we were at 2, 2020, we were at 3, 2025, 4, and we're currently at 4. For our finance department, 2015 with 3, 2020 with 4, 2025 with 4, and currently at 4. For our planning department, 2015 we were at 1, 2020 we were at 1, and we added a position last year, so 2 for that, and that's still our current status. For our community center in 2020, we were at 1, 2025 we were added a position to 2, and there's our current staffing there. In our public works department in 2015, we were at 13, 2020 we were at 13, 2025, we were at 14, and currently at 14. So as you can see, in 10 years, we've added one position in Public Works. For our water distribution, again, 2015, we were at 5. 2020, we were at 5. 2025, we were at 6. So again, one position added during that 10-year period. For our water production, 2015, we were at 4. 2020, we were at 5. 2025, we were at 5. And currently, we're at 7. So we were fortunate to get 2 positions last year in the water production area. For police, in 2015, we were at 15. 2020, we were at 17. 2025, we were at 21. And currently, we're at 22. We added a detective position in last year's budget. For fire, we were at 18 in 2015. In 2020, we were at 24. Currently in 25, we're at 30. So for a total of 91 FTEs currently for the town. Yes, sir.
Scotty, question. For each department, do we know what the contractor hours were for these years?
Contractor hours,
When we, for example, in Public Works, hire contractors for a particular project and then we let them go, do we know what the number is?
are you, I'm not following your question. You asking about contractors like T.P. Howard coming in and doing a job, or are you talking about seasonal workers as part-time staff? I'm not-
Well, that's the clarity I'm asking. If we hire contractors, for example, the project that you and I have been talking about, the lake, are those under the umbrella of an agreement, with one of our, 4 contractors? Or are we bringing those into Public Works as temporary employees?
Now, in that situation, for the work taking place at Lake Louise, the culvert work there, that would be a scope of work and contract for the contractor to provide that work.
Okay,
That's an independent contractor.
okay. So there again, there are events that occur over the town calendar where we need to bring in extra staff, either, through fire or police, to basically cover the safety of the event. Where do those numbers show up?
If there are employees, it would be part of the salary range, whether a police officer or firefighter is having to work that event as overtime, it would still come out of salaries, because that would be one of our employees.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is there's really no unaccounted for labor in the budget. It's either, full-time employees or basically presence convoyed by a contract.
That's right.
Correct.
Is
Yes.
that right?
That's right.
We have a few seasonal workers. It used to be that we hired more, we were really leaned on the at-work folks to hire seasonal workers. We have, over the last, really, 6, 7 years, that is just not a viable pool of workers. We just weren't getting folks even applying. And so we do have, I think, 4 seasonal workers right now, part-time, unbenefited folks. Interestingly, it's some folks that have retired from here, have their retirement, and still have something to give back, and want to stay on in a part-time unbenefited position. And that's been an interesting sort of flip on that.
But they're not volunteering though.
No, they're
Right,
being
no,
paid.
but let me see if I understand what I'm hearing you say. So if there was a scope of work project, we'll pick on something where maybe the town in the past could have done it, or could if you had the time. So building the, down to the nature center, building the wooden stairs to go down to the nature center. So if you contracted that out, you were asking labor hours outsourced, right? Is that, so you go,
Correct.
okay,
Yeah.
so it was a scope of work, they charged $10,000 to build those steps, and other than raw material, they put in 50 labor hours. You go, oh, that would have been, so how much are we outsourcing projects that you're thinking we could potentially, so instead of outsourcing, could you increase the staff and save money?
Yeah.
Am I at all down the path you were headed?
That's it.
Okay. And there is some of that we talk about in here to where, for example, last year we were fortunate to get a facilities maintenance position. So we'll be able to show you in here some and when we look at outside the box, what else can we bring in-house like that? I mean, that position has saved us, was it 64,000?
Conservatively, $62,000 in
Just
projects and just normal maintenance, where instead of hiring the plumber, our facilities maintenance person can.
Exactly.
Like instead of $350
An hour.
to change for the call and to change the $6 part, we've got somebody that's on staff now doing that. So we are looking at that.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and even when, as Jennifer talked about with our seasonal workers, people coming back and different things, unbenefited, we did have a member that retired from another municipality, so obviously they can't, you work but so many hours a year. But that individual is a licensed electrician, so that's, another, as we look at things to where we wouldn't have to provide or pay for a service call for somebody to come here and do that, then that's some work that individual could do, and we just made him a job offer last week. So those are, trying to look at avenues to where we can reduce some costs and still have that benefit there. So,
Super. Thank you.
yes, sir.
Scotty, I do have a
Yes, ma'am.
question as well. Can you tell me how many open positions we have?
I think we
8,
counted
9,
5,
10.
10.
Mhm. Yep. Mhm. Yep.
So mostly fire department?
Mhm. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And where is the other one, the 10th one?
Water treatment plant.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Production.
Production?
Production, yes.
Okay, thank you.
On your next slides, I'm going to give you an example of some supply chain issues, equipment delays, and break it down for entry-level training and certifications. For our equipment, as we've talked about for years and years now, since I got here, the fire engine that's on order in July of '23, we did find out this week last week that they will be going up to Wisconsin first week of April to do pre-con inspection on it, to look at design work and everything. So, and after that, we're getting close to them starting to build it. They have not even started building that truck yet. So, we're still looking at a 38-month time on that from when it was ordered. The rescue truck, ordered in July of '25, looking at 30 months on it. A patrol vehicle, you look at 6 to 9 month build time, then equipment installed, and so estimated in-service time is 9 to 12 months. Our sanitation truck, in '23 it was ordered, the build time on it was in 12 months, and then the equipment installed in 14 months there. But so our breakdown on our entry-level positions, as we talked about last year in the budget, just because you get an FTE doesn't mean you've got that FTE filled then, so to speak. For example, if you were to approve a position July 1 in the budget, then if it's a firefighter, police officer, looking at those timeframes of recruitment and hiring, training, certifications, field training for they're basically ready to be by themselves for, on a police standpoint, 3 to 4 months. So you're looking 10 to 16 months there. With firefighters, as always, the OJT, the on-the-job training and provided, building up your skill sets, being new, water distribution and water plant operators. And those challenges are, the certification requirements to be able to actually man those positions. So that's what I mean by, just because we get that FTE, when is that position truly able to provide that level of service that we've hired them for? And so I wanted to kind of give you a breakdown as you have the opportunity to look at growth coming, and you want to add staffing or hold off on staffing when you look at that and say, well, and as Phil asked last week about, when do we see revenue for, the permits and processing of subdivisions that's already been approved, so that we can kind of line up that timeline of adding a staff and then the offsetting cost of that revenue. So when we look at this just shows you that you're roughly, even if you approve a position, you're looking anywhere from 18 to 24 months before that position is actually benefiting you. So when does that revenue line up? And we'll talk about a little bit about that later, but that's, wanted you to be able to see that as you start thinking about the process of if the town needs positions, how we meet this growth and demand moving forward. And if it's stuff that we say, well, the subdivision's not gonna be built out for 3 years, but if you wait till 3 years to hire that position, then you're 2 years behind based off of some of these numbers. So just want to be able to give you that opportunity to see that of what it looks like. So, for our residential dwelling units, and this somewhat ties into what what Phil was asking about. The data we used was from the American Community Survey, the ACS, for RDU estimates, which is using 2.8 per RDU unit for household size. In 2020, RDU estimates were 2,354 with a population of 4,600. And as you can see, the growth going down each year, or, I mean, going up as you go down through your years. But in 2025, for our residential units, we were at 3,071, with a 23% increase over that 5 years, with a population of 6,608, showing a 30% increase in population over that 5 years. And just estimating out on what that projection would look like in 2030, residential dwelling units of 4,558, with a 33% increase over that next 5 years, with an estimated population of ranging between 10,000 and 12,000 over that 2030 timeframe. And there was,
So what we're using there, just so you know, that the ads each year, those are residential dwelling units based on the developments that have been permitted. It's a possibility that these developments won't get built, but because we have issued a development permit on them, we feel like there's a likelihood of those getting built, and so we've calculated those in the numbers. The timing of those, James and I worked pretty closely to try to figure out, you know, what might drop in which year, which was to your question. It's a guess because it's dependent upon how quickly a contractor actually gets through permitting and then gets their project built. That can have financing components to it, so it is a guess, but we're trying to do our best to project that out as best we can. If something gets added, hang on one second, if something gets added this year, once they get their certificate of occupancy, then they are now taxable at that improved rate. And so that will impact your next year's taxes. And so there's not just the development lag, but there's also then the taxation lag. But we do have a spreadsheet, and we're looking at, we didn't want to give it to you today because it's based on 5-year-old information based on values, and so we're trying to wait for the county tax information, tax assessing information, to try to give you some better numbers.
So we have 9 approved real estate developments in Weaverville, which is exciting. The question I have about developer relationships, are we checking in with these folks to ask for a timeline on some frequency?
I know that sometimes we get a good sense of it when the water starts happening, so we can keep track of it that way. I'll tell you, I reached out. Northridge Farms is the big one. It's the 568 units, and it's a multi-phase, multi-components. There are apartments, there are townhouses, there are duplexes, there are single-family lots, and so I did reach out to them to see when they thought the apartments might come online. I just don't have that information yet. They were supposed to get it to me last Friday, and I don't have it.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good idea if, you know, we make some outreach to them on some frequency, even if the answer is we don't know, but at least that gets transferred back to council where, you know, we can hopefully try to keep up with this. Also, I was going to mention, you know, RDU of 2.8 is a bit above Buncombe County's density number, which I think is 2.5 or something less than that.
That's actually an increase from, say, even 10 years ago. We were in the like 2.2 type range, and it's gone up. It was about 2.5, and I actually see that as a good thing, because one of the goals of council at that time was to increase the families, and so when that number goes up, that's a direct indication that we're getting some younger folks.
Is that 2.8 for Weaverville?
Yes.
yes.
Made by, given to us by the American
American
Community
Community
Survey. So I must be stupid, because if there's 3,071 houses and apartments and there's 6,608 people, that doesn't work.
The math wise, let me explain that.
Okay, so I am
Because-
stupid.
No, it's, I struggled with this, and I don't know
It's
that
clear
I
as mud.
have a great answer to you. One of the things that we were trying to do is keep the census population number and the American College Survey, or, number of our, up at the 2020. That was the last really official data. And so the estimated population that you see is based on the ads. If you count the 200, like if you look in year 2021, you take the 181 times the 2.8, that gets added to the population. And that's why at the bottom, the 2030 number, that's why you see a range, because
We don't know.
we don't know.
We don't know how many people live in Weaverville.
We don't.
No, I don't know how we would.
Exactly.
We don't know.
And whenever the
So-
census happens, it's
So,
a
but we still don't know, right? The census is not the truth.
correct, because it's a
People lie on the
flat.
census. No, they lie on the census. How many people live in your house? They don't walk in and count the people, correct? They're standing at your door, you get it mailed. So we think that the people actually tell the truth on the census? No, they don't. Well, I know they don't. So that's the problem with population, right? And I think it gets back to more things like service calls and other things. We don't know how many people live in town of Weaverville.
And we will never know.
We'll never know. But I agree with you, 2.8 is probably high, but
Especially with all the apartment complexes that are coming on, I would expect that an apartment is gonna have a less household size than say a single-family residence. But that's we try to give you the data that's out there, the official data, and so that is the most accurate, household size.
sure. And the RDU numbers are way more accurate.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, James could go count them.
And all of from 2025 back to 2020, those numbers, the ads are based on our data.
Yeah.
So that's all good information. From 2026 to 2030,
Projections
it's
on it.
projections.
Do we have the 2015 RDU numbers?
I'm sure we could get that.
Just out of curiosity, because that gives us, we're only going back 5 years, that gives us, just for the fun of it, if you have, don't go, kill yourself, but I wouldn't mind seeing what it looked like in 2015.
Especially when we look at increase in personnel, I think, if we look at how many personnel we had then versus, 10 years later, we have to take those things into consideration. I think it'd be helpful.
It's increased 50% in 10 years. It's huge.
Following up on Phil's point though, reaching out to developers, I mean, that's kind of what happened with, some of the projects on Realms Creek, is staying in communication with them as they were looking at downsizing, and then as we, some of the developers may have submitted water application plan and now kind of monitoring what the economy's going to do, and is it worth building the number of residential units that they had planned to build, or now they scale back, because in other areas, this isn't the only area they're building, so, they may be using one project to fund another project. So that is, so we do reach out to them to try to stay abreast and keep that open lines of communication to try to track that up with other than just the water permit application itself.
And Scotty, we certainly don't want to intrude, but the volunteers at WEDAC would be happy to support you, with these check-ins if we can do that. So just call on us if we can do that.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then adding off to, as Andrew Commissioner Leggett talked about, is the population estimates, and the RDUs. One thing, especially with the hospital coming, was what is our daily visitor count, and what does that look like? Current daily visitor population estimate right now is anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000. In the meetings that we've set in with the hospital, we've talked to them about not only the number of employees that they're gonna have, but also the daily visitors there. So, I mean, you're looking at anywhere from, possibly 5,000 to 7,000 more visitors coming to town every day. I mean, that's, it's the same way with, those still tax our resource, but they're not paying taxes. whether they're coming to spend money downtown, whether they're going to, the Walmart shopping area, or whether they're coming to the hospital. There's still traffic coming into town that is still expected for a service delivery. So as we look at that population growth, I mean, that is one thing that we take into account, where you're not going to receive revenue to offset that, but, looking at, what those numbers look like with the number of visitors, so, in there. So we just want to kind of give you some projected growth other than just what residential dwelling units look like versus what daily visitation could look like. Yes, ma'am.
Scotty, one question that I have about the traffic. I know that when, the developers are submitting, all their information and there's a traffic study done, how long is that traffic study good for? And are we looking at, I know that this Northridge Farms has been going on for quite some time, and is it reasonable to ask for another traffic study to be done on that project?
That's done through DOT. I mean, we don't have any, it's on the traffic
Right,
study
but
itself.
that information's gonna be old. So I don't know, is there, is it only good for a year? Is it good for 5 years? So I think that may be something that we need to look into, is how long are those traffic studies good for? And maybe with, all of this growth that's coming, maybe they need to go back and update their traffic studies. Thank you.
Any other questions on population or growth before we move to the next slide? Your next slide is just kind of an estimate where we talk about possible needed growth by department for personnel. As Councilmember Young talked about, is looking at the staffing numbers of when they were last increased, and there was a slide in there earlier where we showed you some of those increases. Currently in 2026, we're at 4 in administration. 2030, we estimate that we could need 7 to 8. So you're looking at 3 to 4 increase in there, and we've put down some ideas. And granted, this is just trying to forecast out. This is not saying that this is what we've got to have or we can't operate anymore without that or anything. We're just trying to be able to forecast some needs as we grow and accommodate services. But some of those needs could be HR, community engagement, PIO, grants manager, and IT. For our finance, we're currently at 4. And by 2030, we will be looking at adding one position, HR benefits, finance specialist position, as a possible need. Under planning, we're currently at 2. By 2030, we estimated 2 more positions, and that would be if we took on permits and inspection. There's talk at the county level, and there has been for quite some time, on how long they're going to keep doing and providing the service of building inspections. So just trying to project out on what that would look like if they all of a sudden come up one day and said, okay, you're going to have to manage your own building inspection program. So looking at that, what we would need in that. For our community center, we're currently at 2. 2030, we looked at the adding of 1 position if you chose to expand facilities there and events. As Councilmember Young talked about, is what could happen with the Dry Ridge Museum offices and things like that. So if you expand that out, if you saw a need there for another person or different services there, what those facilities would look like and be able to accommodate any of that expansion staff. For our public works, we're currently at 14. By 2030, we estimated that going up 20 to 25, so an increase of 6 to 11, and that would be in sanitation, streets, ground, stormwater, permitting in that area. So those are just some of the, trying to forecast out where some positions would be needed, and as you saw in your chart, when we've added last in that area. For water distribution, we're currently at 6. By 2030, estimating out 9 to 11, so anywhere from a 3 to 5 increase, and that will be for expansion, aging water lines and utility locates, with service delivery needs going up and more calls for service on utility locates. Water production, in 26, we're at 7. By 2030, we estimated 11, so adding 4 positions for succession planning and safe operations to be able to have ample crews on site as that plant grows and develops. For our police department, in 26, we were at 22. In 2030, we're estimating a plus or minus anywhere from 10 to 15. That addition would be for day and night squads, possible hospital security if they wanted to contract with the police department to do that. As we talked about before, they've got an option of doing their own police department in-house, an option of contracting with sheriff office or anyone else that they choose to see fit, or paying us to provide that service, and we'll look at 5 officers to provide that service. So, keep in mind, when we talk about these next two with fire and police, typically, 1 position in police equals 4 positions, because it's covering the shift work. Same way in fire, 1 position equals 3 people. So when you see that numbers, why they need so many people in there, it's, for the staffing, you're covering shifts on there versus just 1 position. For example, 1 position in finance, being able to do that job. I mean, working 24-hour operations in police and fire, you have to equate that 1 position to cover every shift. Yes, ma'am.
Scotty, when you talk about how long it takes to get somebody to work independently, like for the police and fire department as an example, are we looking at the succession planning for those that are reaching retirement age in these numbers?
Correct. I mean, and you'll see, and you haven't got our recommended budgets yet, but one of the things that you'll see in the budget that I'll be asking for police department is an overhire position of 6 months. We know we've got 2 sergeants retiring in the police department in the upcoming year. So being able to hire early, they wouldn't be new FTEs for those positions, but they would be 6-month overhire to kind of overlap versus waiting until they retire, then trying to add that, and then we're that much further behind. So we do look at those options in there, try to create that succession planning without so much of a burden on the budget, so. And in fire, we're currently at 30 positions. By 2030, at 42 to 44, so 12 or 14 positions. And what that is several years ago, long before I got here to town, had purchased land on Rims Creek to build a new fire station on. So obviously they knew at some point that they were gonna have to grow the fire department. They in turn determined that land wasn't necessarily buildable for a fire station and accommodate fire station growth there. So we are back to looking at other land areas to be able to accommodate that fire department growth for response times. But when you open a new fire station, you're looking at 12 positions. Again, 4 A, B, and C shift, 3 shifts. So to staff that piece of equipment running out there, whether it's an engine, a ladder, or a rescue, to be able to staff it, that 1 position equates to 4 on there for that, or 3 for that shift. So looking at the 12 to 14, then also for, as Jennifer mentioned, we're succession planning, adding an assistant fire marshal somewhere during that period to be able to accommodate, 1, growth of inspection, but also for Fire Marshal Davis, looking at his retirement in the future to be able to have some succession planning there. But then as they grow, the administrative support there from an admin assistant. So just trying to project out what that may look like. So again, that will be anywhere from 42 to 57 positions. Don't let that number sticker shock you. I mean, we're not telling you that's what we've got to have to be able to meet the demand out there. But what you ask us to do and your expectation out of staff is to be able to give you information, make educated and informed guesses. We are projecting out, and so that would put our totals right now this year at 91 FTEs, in 2030 anywhere from 133 to 148, and there's really not, as you can see, there's not a lot of fluff built into that, trying to project out. Yes, ma'am.
Now, with the fire department, that additional 12 to 14 positions on the fire department, that would be just if there was 1 truck involved. If there was 2 trucks
Correct.
involved, that would double.
You would double
Correct?
that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And in that, I mean, we would do just like we did when we got the 6 positions. I mean, especially now with the county doing the single wide tax district, we would ask for funding from the county to help offset that so that it's a cost share funding model using that. I mean, last year or year before last, when we got those 6 positions, the town funded 3 and the county funded 3. So, I mean, so we can look at, that avenue.
Before you turn your page, so, because I like math, go back to your RDUs, 2025 to 2030, and I think those are probably accurate. That's a 50% increase.
That's right.
So ironically, your staffing require, I don't know if you did that on purpose, it just worked backwards after you had the answer. That's 50% too.
Right, I mean, we were just
Right,
making.
so that makes sense. To me, that, where you're headed in the next 4 years, we know the growth, and forget the population, because like we said, we know the number of residential dwelling units is gonna be 50% more in 4 years from now.
And that's what we've always heard is that, without seeing true numbers, that the expected population growth is expected to double in the next 2 to 3 years. So trying to match that service delivery. And granted, I know when we talk about the amount of positions needed, and as you can see this, I mean, it's, in our opinion, it's nothing extravagant out there. It's, this is still bare bones, basic, providing that level of service.
It's proportionate.
So, yes.
I see it as, proportionate to the number of dwelling units.
I mean, and again, it goes back, especially with our police and fire for that service, I mean, those equating out to shift positions and the number you need to cover the shifts.
And, there's also a feature that's really not accounted for, and that's really the peripheral population growth that's sort of, in the shadow, if you want to think of it that way. Scotty, quick question, is just because I don't know, is water distribution and production under the same appropriation? Or is distribution, does it fall under Public Works?
There, two questions there. Water distribution and water production are under Public Works. However, water production and distribution, they're in the water fund. So the budgeting of that is that enterprise fund as opposed to the general fund.
Got it, thank you.
Any other questions on either one of those slides before we move on? Thank you. Some strategies to meet service delivery expectations with reduced financial impact, and this kind of goes back to the Field's question earlier. Outsourcing services. Currently, we're outsourcing HR, some loan maintenance, GIS, stormwater permits, inspections, building permits and inspections, legal, engineering, IT service, and tax collections. So future examples that we could do on that is utility locates could be outsourced, and expand our loan maintenance service, contracting and outsourcing some of that. So I mean, when you're trying to look at the labor market, what is out there, what is the, as Jeff and Andrew used to talk about, what is our return on our investment, the ROI. So looking at that, of what we're paying for, can we fund that in other ways and still provide a quality level of service. Some services on strategy for bringing services in-house. We talked about the facility maintenance technician, the electrician, firearms qualification, and professional development training. So with our facility maintenance, we give you an example of what we saved with that position already. So basically, it paid for itself on what we would have paid for other services to come in here and provide plumbing work, whatever. We expect the same type of return from our electrician being licensed. Firearms qualification, we've got in-house instructors with our police department able to certify our folks and use the reins as we see fit and on our timeline versus getting in line and waiting for the range, especially as we talk about with hiring of new officers, then trying to get that range time and get an instructor out there. So there's a benefit there. Our professional development and training, as some of you were able to attend our DISH training recently, for what that cost us, to have 45 people go through it, is what it would have cost me to send 2 people to an out-of-town training. So, looking at that force multiplier with bringing those services in the house to help with our professional development growth. Vehicles and equipment, side loader garbage truck, less personnel. So as with our older truck, it requires 3 people, the driver and 2 riding the back step and slinging cans, which also creates so it can create workers' comps and safety issues. So with buying the side loader truck, you're looking at 1 person. I was fortunate enough to be able to go out and ride with Jacob on the truck that day and witness the skill set that it takes to be able to maneuver not only around the parked vehicles, but grab the cans and dump them. And so, I mean, it is a benefit to have that type of piece of equipment, and those are some offsets on, reduced staffing, but still be able to meet the service delivery demand out there. Our electric and hybrid vehicles, those are some of the vehicles and equipment in there, as far as servicing on them, brake work, fuel mileage, things like that. So as we can see, fuel cost is definitely starting to rise. So that is a benefit and a cost savings in the long run where we're putting money back into town's pocket. Future examples of some equipment that could save on staffing and personnel would be the drum chipper, which is basically a way of chipping wood as the ones we have, or the trailer pull behinds, which we know there's some strong safety risks with that, of trying to slide tree limbs and branches in that and Hopefully, everybody remembers to let go of that before they throw it in there. But it is some safety features on that, and, you know, and the amount of people that it takes to operate that other one versus what we have. Technology improvements, financial software upgrades, work order models, timesheets. For our Public Works Department, I mean, we were still being faxed in work orders, and then you call down to Public Works, and they try to get in touch with the crew in the field, so we're, making it out of the 18th century to get to a little better to where we can get them some iPads in the field, and they can see their work orders to increase that timely service delivery that was done with the software upgrade, that it all ties in that component together. On our public safety integration with the fire station alerting, it's a ramp-up system that increases early notification and response times. One of the challenges in a fire station is being in a deep sleep, and all of a sudden there's a loud buzzer that goes off and increases the heart rate and everything else. So with this, I mean, it kind of, and it's an audible tone as well as the lights slowly increasing to help, instead of giving you that heart attack tone in there itself. But future examples of that is the additional public safety integration with PSIP and the CDE. You'll see some information being presented to you at the upcoming council meeting on the CDE. But Chief Oberlin and I are researching some other information on different ways of doing business as well to try to what that offset can look like. Obviously, right now the county is charging us for calls for service and different things, so we're exploring options, and you'll be presented some information from the CDE, which is part of the CAD entry data, call response times, which the county started, I think, 3 years ago, billing us for those services. So you'll see some of that, looking at some of the technology upgrades on that. Some of the partnering that we've been doing is water interconnections, working with Rims Creek Fire Department on automatic aid as well as mutual aid. They do cover some area further out into town for us, even though it's, their fire response, it's within the mileage jurisdiction, but we can't meet service delivery demand to residents that we've annexed out there because of terrain and traffic and things like that. So we do have some automatic aid agreements with them to respond, for example, to the golf course. They're first in out there with both dispatch simultaneously, but their station being approximately 3/4 of a mile from that location. I mean, it is some of the partnership we do there. The WBA events partnership, working with county resiliency planning. That's something that we started after Hurricane Helene, Tropical Storm Helene, working together for resiliency and planning that growth together. Future examples of public-private partnerships and joint purchasing, what that would look like. For example, if as we talked about the drum chipper or different things in Public Works, or whether it be something with asphalt paving, is it something that we can go in with another municipality on, and can we offset the cost together? Because realistically, we might use it 2 months out of the year for street paving project or anything like that. So just using that example, is there a municipality that we can partner with to help offset that cost, and then both of us co-share it and work a schedule to when it's used in their area versus our area. Same way we're doing with the road barricade stuff. I mean, we've had people that we were ahead of the game looking at safety and bought our road barricades, and we've had a lot of municipalities reach out to us and wanting to borrow those in events, to where now I think it's time to say, okay, let's look at joint purchasing, and both of us go together and buy something and have that force multiplier in there. Yes, sir.
So, Scotty, this may not be front and center, in terms of service delivery, but you probably heard me recommend this before. I'd encourage us to get serious about looking at AI, and not necessarily with respect to, again, front-end service delivery, but in terms of operations. How can we liberate our staff capacity to do more things with that type of enhancement, if you want to think of it that way. And when we were at School of Government, I talked to the dean about what's the school teaching municipalities in terms of AI, and she said, Phil, we're afraid of it. But she did say, you know, that they were responsible for actually codifying the proceedings of the North Carolina Assembly through a fleet of editors. And this year, they're running a side-by-side pacing experience to test AI to actually create the journal versus having it done manually. So, I mean, there's a good idea where, you know, for example, the minutes of our own council meeting, you know, could be automated if we, you know, tap into our PA system.
Yes, sir, and there's a couple things with AI to follow up on your point. I mean, I've talked with some professors at the School of Government, as you mentioned. I mean, there is some concern with it, because it's data in, data out. You're inputting that data and it's out there in the cloud. I had a meeting today regarding AI with a company that is on a closed circuit. So it's not out there on the cloud. So I mean, looking at AI, on some things that you can control better on what you're putting in there, especially if it's sensitive information, then everybody else doesn't have access to it. We are exploring options, and of meetings to be able to provide some AI recording devices to be able to help offset with some note-taking minutes, things like that, to try to slowly phase into the world that's coming after us, whether we like it or not. So we want to try to ease into that and put it into some couple different components, and then review the security features with that, along with our cybersecurity stuff. But looking at that aspect, I mean, and as you mentioned, I mean, I think a good place to start that out is at some meetings and validate that AI recording and be able to, versus having the recorder like that we're using tonight, can we use an AI platform to help generate that, a lot more user-friendly, less work, taking time off staff and reducing that, labor force hours that it takes to translate the minutes of the meetings, so.
No, that's great. That's encouraging. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Peter actually recommended that we use Plod and actually just got it today, trying to get it set up, so,
Pretty nifty.
yeah. So you'll see more of it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for that.
It's gonna save a lot of time.
Does Claude charge $565 an hour?
No, I do the reading part. No. They're actually pretty cost effective too. I use it for all my meetings, and you can actually design the way it uses an adaptive summary based on your instruction, what you want to see, and then it just makes it. Best way I can
That's
put
the
it.
scary part.
Suddenly, a minute later, it just appears.
Don't know how it does it, but it does.
Yeah, but anyway.
That's great.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it is a great, just like anything out there, it's a great resourceful tool used in the right way. But we just want to slowly implement and phase it in. And as Peter mentioned, that was one of the ways we could do that. And then, like I say, setting it on a meeting today for tabletop exercise and planning and things, so that your sensitive information. So, for example, if we were to do a tabletop exercise for a water facility, then we're not putting information out there that is security sensitive people. So looking at some of those aspects. So, our grant funding, water system improvements, nature park stormwater project. Fire department's got the grants for boat and water. Speaking of cybersecurity, we had a grant through North Carolina League of Municipalities. And then Tamara received, she put in the work for the tree assessment grant for the canopy, and where Davy Group was received award on that. So those are some of the avenues that we received grant funding on. What we would be looking at for future examples would be a SAFER grant, which is fire department staffing. That is phased in. The first year would be 100% that the federal government, as long as it doesn't go away, pays you for that. Then it's usually 75, then 50, and then 35. And then the fifth year option is you picking up that complete tab. That's one of the ways to increase some staffing without taking that budget burden at one time. So then the AFG would be some fire department grant. And the League of Municipalities also does some safety grants, and we did use part of that grant. But what they have is a $5,000 up to a $5,000 match, and we did use that when we purchased the road barricades before. But there's several things that you can use on that safety grant with the League of Municipalities. So still exploring those options. Any questions on that before we move on? All right, and again, staffing level comparisons among other jurisdictions, just trying to paint a picture for you so you can see what staffing level looks like, square miles, population, and to try to, if they have the same level of services being fire and water. We know they all have law enforcement, but Hendersonville, 2024-25, population of 15,408 with a square miles of 7.5. They have fire, they have water, they have 330 full-time employees with 50 seasonal workers. Morganton, population 17,646 with 19 square miles. They have fire and water. Full-time employees 297. Seasonal population is estimated 100 to 125. Waynesville's population 10,502 with 9 square miles. They have fire and water. Full-time employees 215. Seasonal employees is 70 to 90. Marion, 7,579, 6 square miles. They both have fire and water. 114 full-time employees, 12 to 20 seasonal. Brevard, almost 8 square miles. Population 7,897 with 5.5 square miles. They have water and fire with 101 full-time employees and 40 seasonal. Black Mountain, 8,513 population, 7 square miles with fire and water services, 100 full-time employees and approximately 25 seasonal. These others we've reached out to try to get their full-time and haven't heard back yet, but we were able to look at their population in square miles. For Forest City, 7,363 with 8.5 square miles, and they both have fire and water. And again, looking at Weaverville, we were 4,687 for our population at 4 square miles with 91 full-time employees, with seasonal being 4 employees currently. Franklin, 4,268, 5 square miles. Rutherford, 3,680 and 4 square miles. And Mars Hill, 3,025 with 2 square miles. And one of the things you'll see with your seasonal employees is some agencies have a larger parks and recreation, or some may have a pool with lifeguards or things like that. So whether you're maintaining baseball fields, using umpires or different things, they're factoring that into their seasonal employees. So you may see a larger seasonal employee base on some of those agencies. But the biggest thing we wanted to be able to compare was if they had water and what that looks like for water distribution, water production, as well as fire. And looking at some of those numbers.
So on the fire though, I don't know what Black Mountain does. I mean, you're servicing the upper end of the county with 50% of your calls.
Correct.
So does Black Mountain do the same thing?
And it's about the same there. They have the
Okay.
East Buncombe district where we have the North Buncombe, and it's
Perfect.
about
So
the same.
you're
We're
trying to
which
compare
theirs-
apples to
theirs is-
apples.
Theirs is probably a little larger because coming from there, their square miles in the city is 7, our square miles is 4. Our North Buncombe district is 26, I believe. Theirs is totaling 59 square miles
Okay.
between their city and county. So,
Okay.
It's impossible to get a real good comparison because every jurisdiction has different services that they provide. For instance, Buncombe County, none of us have sewer. When you get out into Haywood County and Henderson County, they probably have sewer. And then a lot of the recreational components are very different from ours. But we did want to try to get some information to see how you might think about the scaling of employees based on some of this information.
Any questions on it? All right. In your handouts, you've got an org chart, but we don't have that as our slide presentation tonight, so you can move on to the, what we've requested, capital projects and equipment and personnel, some of the things we're looking at in there. Administration, planning, and community center, facility maintenance for our capital projects, elevator repairs, ADA accessible doors, downtown restroom spaces and office space, equipment, security cameras, community center generator. Personnel-wise, we'll be looking at 2.5 in that, one HR position full-time, one part-time front desk, and one community engagement PIO position in administration. Police Department, on their capital projects, shooting range facility maintenance, ballistic film on the windows for downstairs, as well as upstairs for, one of our concerns that if we were ever to have an unfortunate incident with an active shooter at our school, they've got direct access line of sight to our staff here upstairs, so looking at some ballistic film there as well to protect our staff from a safety standpoint. Vehicle-wise, 5 vehicles, and then part of that is two. They're set up to replace 2 every year to keep that rotation going. Drone, security cameras, weapons replacement to be able to have a stock for new officers coming in, radios, a restroom trailer down at the range itself, barrier system, and that's where we talked about earlier, being able to work with other municipalities, have some cost share in there, speed alert trailer. Personnel-wise, 2 new positions, and they would work basically a peak time frame so that you're splitting the shifts, and they would work traffic and things of that nature. And then the other, as we talked about earlier with the 2 overhire positions, they would be a 6-month position based on the sergeants that are scheduled to retire, so that they would be in place when that retirement occurred.
But again, this doesn't include possible hospital needs that they may need.
No, we're still, 2 years out from the hospital being built. So, this is just some projections, try to give you some numbers, get some guidance on yes, no, maybe, or there's actually no way, or come back with better justification, stuff like that, but kind of give you some, and we'll have our meetings with department heads next week to kind of, fine tune the budget a little more, but this is just to give you some thought process and early information, so. Fire department, some of the possibilities is a detached apparatus building, if we got the footprint to build it up there, and then the land acquisition for Station 2. One of the things with, if we put something up at Station 1 now is, storing some equipment in, as we look at future growth, do we add a fleet maintenance position, to where we, service our own vehicles in-house, everything from a garbage truck to a fire truck to a police car. If we had our own mechanic, most mechanics will bring their own tools anyway, so if we did, looking at that growth, is that an opportunity up there as well to have, more space up there, but then as we build new fire stations and reallocate equipment, can that place built, be repurposed to that type of future growth looking ahead. So there's continued funding for apparatus, as our capital improvement in there, rescue trailer, to ATV components, and then rescue equipment is some of their capital equipment request. And again, this is just some of their equipment requests. This is not the manager's recommendation yet to you guys. We wanted you to be able to see what some of the departments were requesting in that as we work with them to fine tune to see what stays in there to come to you as we move forward. But personnel strategies, recruitment and retention, looking at options of overtime after 40 hours as a retention benefit. The surrounding agencies around us, they're required to pay overtime after 40, with the exception of Black Mountain and Asheville. So all the others are private corporations. So a lot of people are leaving and looking at that option. So exploring that option is what if we were adequately fully staffed, and we'll present you some numbers of what that would look like if we were paying overtime after 40. And it looks like it'll be somewhere between a 9 and 10% increase, and that's just with structured overtime that would be factored in there. That wouldn't be factored in if they would picked up extra overtime, but just wanted to give you some, looking at what that could look like moving forward, and take your recommendations as we go through the budget process on some funding mechanisms and models of what we can reasonably afford to fund in that. For our public works on street projects, or capital project street paving, storm drainage pipe replacements, the water wheel area of improvements, the nature park, stormwater projects. Equipment that's been asked for is 2 vehicles, and those are admin, not necessarily admin stuff, but the, like pickup trucks that your people in the field will be using. It's not a large equipment. You've got your swap loader, 2 mowers, Lake Louise exercise equipment replacement. One of the things I've asked about is, can we get some verification on how often that equipment is used? If there's a large enough footprint there, if it's not being used, is that somewhere that we can make into a skate park for skateboarding, with that footprint down there? So just still trying to evaluate some of those things. The message board, and an air board are some of their, equipment requests. Personnel wise, they're asking for one position in grounds and one position in stormwater. In our water department, as Jennifer mentioned earlier about the enterprise fund being, and that's why you see water separate from public works. Water line replacements, Rims Creek, road water line extension, insulate pipes at the water treatment plant, that run up to our above ground tanks. 2 vehicles, meter replacement, a light tower, some water treatment plant equipment, with our chlorine analyzer, and a PRV valve. In that division, they're asking for 1 new position at the water treatment plant and 1 new position in distribution. And again, so far, this is their request. We will sit down with the department heads and go through more justification, before we come back to you with a manager's recommendation and what is in these capital projects, equipments, as well as personnel. Any questions on that slide? Yes, sir.
One question, a couple of projects have stars next to it.
Those, we have some grant funding in place.
That's what I
Right,
thought.
yep. Any other questions on that slide? All right, thank you. Next slide is sustainability and resiliency in service delivery with anticipated growth. This is some of my focus area to be able to get some feedback from you, and I hope we're painting a good picture for you, that we're trying to look far enough ahead that we're not just focused on the upcoming budget year. What does it look like, in 2030 timeframe of projected growth and looking at that aspect. Employee recruitment and retention, we've heard, a lot of time from council that, it's better to retain an employee and offer them a salary to retain them, plus it's having a revolving door to where you're constantly training people. So are there things that we can do to help with that employee retention aspect? Our facility needs, maintenance and future growth. Unfortunately, it seemed that the town went several years without doing preventive maintenance on our facilities that we are noticing, and not only from a growth standpoint, but properly maintaining. And then when we look at future growth, as we see, town halls doesn't have office space right now. We're looking at converting a file room to an office space. Community center in itself, you've got the Dry Ridge Museum there, but if you want to expand, any services down there, whether it be recreation or anything else, and that building's only 5 years old. Police department's, maxed out on staffing, so, as we look at land acquisition for building a new fire station, do we build it as a public safety complex and put fire and police together, freeing up space downstairs for planning department or anything else, as we look at future growth needs, in there. So trying to plan that out, and then, looking at the strategic plan alignment. As you've started seeing, as we present budget amendments or different things, we align those up with where it valued at on your strategic plan. So looking as we go through this budget process, what aligns with your adopted strategic plan, and how do we have those values in there for you to kind of see and rate what was important, not only council, but what was important to the public, and how that aligns up and we meet that need from a service delivery standpoint from the town. Any questions on that slide? Talking about our strategic plan alignment, some of the things that you were in your strategic plan. I know some of the council was here for the adoption of it. Some of you came afterwards, but we appreciate you, that I know all of you, most of you attended either the survey sessions or the in-person session, to be able to place the little sticky notes around the room. So you had some input and valued input on that, but sidewalks, streets, our park trails and greenways, downtown restrooms, increased outdoor dining, community engagement, land acquisition for fire and police or combined facility, youth engagement, Main Street Nature Park Stormwater Project, water systems improvements, emergency preparedness, and recovery and resiliency. Those were the themes going through our strategic plan that we saw a lot of it. So again, as you see this budget get developed, it will be tied into your strategic plan process. Any questions on that slide? So town council, conversation, preliminary input, what wanting for here is service delivery expectation, personnel matters being COLA and merit increase. Last year, we did 3% COLA, 2% merit. Is that something you're in favor of? Again, this year, but one of the ways we did it last year for the COLA, the cost of living, to kind of help, as we talked about, prices at the grocery store, everybody's paying the same thing, whether you're a supervisor or whether you're a boots on the ground person. And so we kind of took that total price that y'all had authorized us for the 3% cost of living and determined what that would equate to and divided it amongst all the employees. So somebody may have got, 2.5% COLA, and somebody may have got 5.5 out of it based off of what you make in that distribution money. One of the challenges with that moving forward, that if that's the route you want to go, is to keep in mind, is that eventually it's going to create compression in our salaries. So as we look at that, yes, off the top, it does seem like a good idea to be able to do that, but now you've got, people at the bottom that are needing that COLA, and you're giving them more than you are that supervisor level. So as we look at that, it is a good option to do that, but also keep in mind that you're creating compression and making those salaries go closer together if we do get that funding model approved, or which way you want to go with that when we're looking at the COLA and the merit increases in there. Pay studies and market adjustments. We're still waiting on David Hill to provide us pay studies and market adjustments out there. That is something that we contract with annually for him to provide that service of what other municipalities and agencies are doing, as well as we talked about, being able to pay our staff to keep our staff. So looking at that. Overtime calculations, the only two departments that it would impact would be police department and fire if we did explore the option of paying overtime after 40. Currently all other agencies or all other departments in the town, if you're overtime eligible, you did get compensated for overtime after 40. Staffing increases to handle the anticipated growth. As you can see, we've laid out numbers all the way to 2030, and that's just a rough guesstimate on what those needs would be and what the population does look like. Additional needed facilities, whether it's going somewhere and purchasing land one year, then starting construction the following year. Street programming and sidewalk program funding, what's your priorities on that? Where we need to add sidewalks, where we need to look at some street paving, what that looks like. Revenue neutral, we are required to present you with a revenue neutral option this year, as well as tax rate increases and what that looks like. So as we get those numbers from the county on what that revenue, as I'm sure most of you have received your reval notice in the mails by now. So hopefully, the county will have us those numbers soon of what that revenue projection looks like, and we can provide you the revenue neutral numbers coming soon. And then town council, what is your wishes and expectations? Whether it be anything from, make sure it's on another slide. Yeah, I've got that on another slide as far as the public input section, but is there anything that we've covered tonight that you're totally against or want more justification on, just so as we go through this budget process, that we can make sure that we can give you information to be able to make informed decisions on, or you need, where are we at on this slide, or what are your thoughts on that, or any questions or comments before we go to the next slide?
Well, I think some things will change based on what the county does with the county fire tax. So, until we get those revaluations and they determine what that tax rate will be, that will help us understand where we are with the fire department anyway.
Okay.
So, you can tell me if I'm wrong, current tax rate is 35.4 per 100?
38 cents.
Went up.
Yes, it was 35, and it went 38 last year. And in our North Buncombe Fire District, it's 12.27.
So it's 38,
Correct.
so it went up 10%. Basically 3 cents on 35 is close enough to 10. The taxable dollars, I'm gonna have those wrong too, so I might as well not even say them. And I'm sure it'll come later in the budget. What's our ad valorem taxable dollars, ballpark? No, the ad valorem, the value of the property we're throwing the, rate against. So it used to be $1.2 billion of taxable.
Yeah, that's what we're waiting on for the
I
county.
know, but what was it last year, since I'm off? Because I haven't been coming.
$1.257003835.
1.2, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
Billion,
yeah.
right, divided by 100 times
Right.
35 cents, that's your,
38.
as, it's our property tax, but they like to call it ad valorem. I don't know why, nobody else speaks, and is that Latin or Greek?
It's Latin,
Latin, but we,
per value.
yeah, I know, but we should just say whatever, but whatever. It's our property tax. So we know, as Scotty had already pointed out, Thermo, you know, they had to turn their commercial property in already, so we will have that for,
This upcoming year.
right, for a little bit, until we don't, and that was like 100, of the 175, 150-ish
Yeah.
was commercial property, that'll go to 0. So there's a budget shortfall there. Okay, so, and in theory, so revenue neutral, I had an argument 8 years ago, 10 years ago about revenue neutral. What's the state law on revenue neutral? Is it really 10% more is revenue neutral? Is revenue neutral mean I don't write a check to you or the county for any more money?
Are you talking about fund balance?
No. So what Scotty said, and these guys have been through it, he's gotta give us 2 budgets. Revenue neutral, and I had an argument with Selena. Revenue neutral, the state probably hasn't changed their law. To me, if I write a $10,000 check to the town of Weaverville and you guys, and the Buncombe County doubles the value of my property, then the town needs to shrink the rate by double. So I don't write more than the $10,000 check, and that's revenue neutral, but I don't know that that's the state. So what is it, 10%?
Revenue neutral is just whatever the new tax rate would be based on your new assessed value.
Right.
What would what tax rate would it take to give you the same tax
Right.
levy based on your average growth over the last 5
Right,
years?
and then they put in growth into that. Yeah, so it's not revenue neutral, just
So
doesn't matter, they have to
essentially-
follow the law.
So essentially, based on the new valuations that come out on the property, it could be that our tax rate decreases.
Correct.
It's gonna go down.
It will.
Right.
Yeah, and we've done that, and so this becomes this, staff is obviously, to your point, you gotta hire people for down the road, but the growth, so, you know, you've lived in Weaverville a long time, you shouldn't be paying for any additional policemen. You paid your share of policemen, so who should pay for policemen? Maple Trace. We just annexed Maple Trace, right? Yep, you know, and it's, we're not waiting for them to come online, right? Maple Trace is paying property tax?
They're already on.
Right, so if we need another cop, you know, Maple Trace is paying for it. I don't wanna be paying for another cop. I didn't grow up. Mine's the same, right? So this is that dilemma of, as we have had this rapid growth in town, who's paying for the additional services?
It should be the new
It
properties.
should be the new
coming on.
people. Right, so that's a balance because we're gonna be behind, right?
Right.
You've already said it a couple times. At some point, he's gonna have to hire policemen for that hospital.
Right,
And, cause it takes 18 months to 2 years to get them trained, and we need them when it opens. So we're gonna have to, somebody's gonna pay for that. It won't be the 567 people in Northridge Farms.
because they're not open yet.
Right, and that's, to some extent, Phil's point, kick them in their shins and go, hey, get going, because they're not paying the property tax on that right now. They are on the land, correct? So they're paying it on the land, they're not paying it on any buildings, they ain't building any buildings, and they can't pay. And then it's when does that come on, when it comes on board or the next cycle?
The
When a
tax-
development, yeah, for your property tax.
January 1.
Right,
after.
so man, I'll tell you what, you wanna come on board on January 2. It's like you wanna have a kid on December 31st?
Right.
I guarantee you those developers know what they're doing, and they wanna come online.
So is this the first year that we'll be getting tax revenue from Maple Trace?
Yes.
Okay, so how much is that compared to how much we've lost with Thermo Fisher? So it may be a wash.
I can tell you what it is based on last year's values.
Sure, do
Yeah.
that. But it's not a wash because Thermo Fisher used that much of town services,
Right.
0. We don't go pick up their garbage. We don't, fix their parking lot, we don't sweep their cops drive through and they're good, but, right? So that's the problem when losing, you're correct, when we lose a Thermo, she could tell, they could probably tell us the number. God, it's gotta be 50, 60 to 1,
Right.
right? So, cause you're not taking really not getting any services, very little.
The services would increase, but I'm just looking at. the
Yeah, no, I
tax
know,
revenue.
I agree with you, and it's like a Walmart, right?
Right.
You gotta hire, how many policemen do we have to hire to, Chief Oglet for Walmart? 27 police, just Walmart? Yeah, right. And that was the discussion when Walmart came in, they didn't think through, because Walmart, you know, go look at the list, how much do they pay in taxes? And are they funding their policemen that we have to keep in the Walmart parking lot? Typically not. Where Thermo, we don't need policemen hanging out in Thermo.
Right.
No, somebody still owns that property, still gonna be paying.
Correct,
Property
but it's
tax on
25,000,
Thermo.
it's 25,000.
Now, let me ask you this question. So the personal property tax that the county assesses, how much of that revenue do we see as a town, if any?
150,
Is that it?
yeah. So that'll go away. And so what happens is, and yeah, they're filling it out every January. And they're going, we've got X amount of computers.
Yeah.
Right, and you go boom, and it equals to the rate, I think it was 150 versus about 25. That's what's gonna go away, and your point is correct. The 25 stays forever.
Right.
Somebody buys it. And the problem, and it's good what WEDAC's doing with the old ball crank, but it won't be paying the property taxes that ball crank was paying back in the day. There's no equipment in it, right? Pickleball courts don't generate property tax. There's nothing taxable about a
No
pickleball
equipment.
court. There's no equipment. Equipment, computers, and furniture, right? There's virtually none, so
Personal property.
if WEDAC fills that place up with artists, that's all good, I'm not saying that's bad, they're not gonna be paying a lot, I promise you, in personal property tax compared to what Ball Crank did, 10 years ago.
Correct.
So we have to balance that of who we're losing, to your point, what are we replacing them with?
So in May of '24, as the Maple Trace conversations were going on, we reported roughly a property tax revenue of $153,000 annually. That's based on the assessed value from 5 years ago. So they will get a refreshed.
Good point,
Value.
dollar for dollar,
Right.
gonna be real close.
Now, your water revenue was cut in half because they were.
They make a lot of money.
And so
Water's
we
fine.
lost, we're getting about 48,000, estimated 48,000 in
Less.
revenue from them, so we've lost, some in that.
Different budget though.
Different budget.
And that's 136 units that are probably roughly
134,
is it 134?
134.
Roughly now at
300.
market 425 each.
I think we estimated conservatively, I don't know, I want to say we estimated that, averaged it to 350,000.
350? Okay.
May have been as much as 375, but,
Now, there's five for sale.
Yeah, you can't buy it for that, so.
yeah, I
Because
totally
their
agree.
property tax went up,
Absolutely.
more than their water bill went down.
Yeah.
Look, we're better off. Our budget, this budget he's talking about, unrelated to the water, is tougher, right? So, no offense, water people, but when you can sell the water for double the amount and the town gets no revenue, that hurts our services. So I'll say it now, I said it before, I'm against COLA raises, don't like them. I like compression, so we don't, if it's too far apart, so everybody can't be a supervisor, right? I got people that work for me that, they can't come to me and go, oh, wow, I almost make what my supervisor make. Well, you're not supervisor material, you never will be, you didn't want to be and you're happy. I got the same lady cutting emblems out for 45 years, does the same job, she's never gonna be a supervisor. We pay her good. Her shift supervisor doesn't make much more than she does. She doesn't ever want to be a lead person or a supervisor. So compression, when we talk about how bad corporations are, Amazon's, what is your salary compared to the lowest person's? Because I'll tell you is it 3 to 1? Or is it 3,000 to 1? It ain't 3,000 to 1, right? Compression
Right.
is a problem. But I'm glad you said it. I don't need a 3% raise to pay for the price of eggs going up. My gal, I don't need a raise at all. I don't need a COLA raise at all. And, you know, I don't make that much money. And the gal, 45 years, she needs it, right? She needs to buy her eggs. So I'm glad you said that. And it does cause consternation to go. And I've never been in the fire or police business to go, I don't want to be a sergeant now because it's more responsibility and it's less pay. But not everybody can be a sergeant. Not everybody should be a sergeant. Not everybody should be a fire chief or a police chief. So I like compression. We're a very flat company, and we don't have this big gap between our lead people, our supervisors, and there's some advantages. I mean, 60 years ago, people wanted to come in the office off the factory for less money. Why would you go work in the office for less money? Well, you got to dress nicer. There was carpet on the floor. There was some other non-monetary, non-perks.
It's not as noisy.
Right, not as noisy. You know, there's those things that we take into, you know, I've been managing people for 35 years, that it's not always, but you gotta be aware of that. So, I don't know how, you know, you guys will figure out your own thing about COLA. I'm a merit guy. I believe, you know, I remember Doug Jackson when he get ready a 15% raise based on, you know, the inflation. And it's like, you're gonna lower it then when it goes back to 2%? No. So you gotta be careful.
That's right.
I think the bigger question for, we don't have a fire chief right now? We're still looking? So it would be for the fire, right, for the fire chief and the police chief, and Jennifer and I had this conversation. I don't want to say it out loud, but I will. I don't care what they make. What I care is if you can hire and retain. And I had this argument with previous fire chief long ago about what they were making. So I want to see their W-2s, and the question is, can you retain? So if we're paying, on the W-2, your lowest paid fireman at that point made $45,000 a year. So I don't care what they make an hour. That's what they took home on their W-2.
The problem
But
with
if you-
W-2, Andrew, though, right now, is there's so many of the firefighters
Right.
that are working extra shifts to cover the holes.
Sure,
because we've
if you got
10
holes.
openings.
And I'm agreeing with that, but if you said, we can't hire a fireman for less than $75,000, because that's what it takes in our market. You can't move, right? Like I said, Jennifer had this conversation. I can move my plant if I can't hire anybody. We can't move the town, right? We're here. So what does it take to hire a policeman and retain him? What does it take to hire a fireman? That's the better number, not what they make. You know, can you hire them? Can you keep them? Do they want to work for you? Are they happy? And all those things, and go, that number may be minimum 60 grand. I don't know what they can make right now. You know, that was, I think, 3 years ago when I asked for that number. So that's, when you're looking at the budgets, so I don't like COLA raises, but I like paying people
To
the
attract
going
and
rate,
retain.
right?
To attract and retain.
And I'm 100% agreeing with you, retention is way better than, and we've had to do that. Are we being recorded?
Yes.
Damn. My father-in-law's gonna hear me. I hope he's not listening. We had to raise our wages. We didn't want to.
Retain people.
Our turnover was like this, and I was competing against other people. Maybe they got lower wages in Mississippi on a government bid, right? But the plant manager, we're all looking around going, at $7.25 an hour, man, we can't keep anybody. $7.25 does not work. Is that the minimum wage in the state, or is it $7.50? Something stupid like that, right? There ain't nobody paying that,
Yes.
right? So keep that in mind from my standpoint with your budget. Put in those numbers what you need to keep and retain people. And that's really important. Versus what are they really, you know, I don't need to see what they're making. I need you to say to us, here's what I need in my budget to hire 5 policemen to keep them. And that's, yeah, you'll get my support on that.
And to your point, I mean, that was one of the reasons last year on, you know, I proposed to council on the COLA piece was that, you know, if we're gonna use this, then let's benefit the ones that are gonna use it the most, you know, versus the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer type thing.
Absolutely.
We employed a hybrid approach. The COLA was just to establish a floor, and it was a floor based on inflation and the price of eggs, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
And then we supplemented that by making it fairer by having merit in selective areas.
Perfect.
And I think that's perfect, and I thought that we did a very good job, and I support the way we did it the last year.
Okay, good.
And then to your point, as far as, okay, well, I don't care what they're making, I just need to know, how much does it take to hire and retain? That is a very important point. However, I'll also just mention that once you establish that, now you have to look inward to the folks you already have, and now we're
Oh, yeah.
talking retention bonuses.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Not just merit raises, but retention bonuses. And frankly, it could be even retention raises.
Absolutely.
Which is year over year. And, you know, so let's just always keep in mind that whatever we agree to this year, we've agreed to that and more
Yeah,
next
they
year.
go backwards.
That's right.
You're
Okay.
correct. They go backwards. No, and you're correct. None of us like it, right? When, and I'm not comparing people by any stretch of imaginations to your cell phone. You go, new customers get the new cell phone and pay less. I'm like, what about me? I've been, or, you know, Spectrum. Right when you're quitting Spectrum and you're a half an hour later, I'm done. They go, well, you can pay half the price. Where were you? Right?
Well, I
So,
referred you to the retention department.
and that's a, Peter, that's a super duper point.
Well, that was one of the things that I've been trying to get across is performance tied to strategic objectives. Is how does somebody measure up to that? And then how can you base pay curves based on that? And you know what the top is, you know what the bottom is, and it's all ranked based on what their performance is.
Absolutely. Did we do away with giving bonuses for good ideas and saving the town money? Yes.
That hasn't
Those
been-
blank stares are yes.
It hasn't been budgeted in
Yeah.
the last couple of
Okay.
years.
I think that was maybe, well, I won't be disparaging. It was a good idea that Patrick came up with, was, you know, if a worker had come up with an idea that you could quantify, to your point, and we switched, I think somebody switched, you guys can correct me, worked on switching bulbs to LEDs or something, and we did that in-house, and it was somebody's idea, and they got maybe, I don't know.
Stuff like some of the different
Yes.
exercises.
Yes.
We actually do that at my law firm. We do $25 Amazon gift cards. Anybody with a good idea? Or if you get a customer or a client to write a 5-star Google review even, you get $25 in your pocket. And boy, that works. I mean, it really works. $25? Yeah.
And this was a percent, right?
Mhm.
That we were doing, or something like that? I can't remember.
Typically in like a $500.
Yeah, yeah, for a good idea.
QR codes were one of them, on parking citations.
One thing real quick to Councilman Nager's point is that we have switched up our evaluation process, because when I took over as manager, I mean, when I got to the fire department, we implemented an evaluation process that was geared toward public safety and rating the employee, to where we weren't using same thing that somebody in finance would be rated on for their evaluation. So now we've implemented that across town-wide. This will be the first year that it's implemented, and it's, you know, you're rated based off of, I mean, because safety to an office worker isn't the same safety to a patrolman or firefighter. You know, so we've got, department heads had to come up with, as you scroll across, it gives you some bullet points of, is it 3.75, is it 5, is it 6, or whatever, and there's language in there that, are they this employee? I don't think they're there yet, so you back it down and try to get there, but then you still, as a supervisor, has to list some justification in there as well. So it gives you, not only the employee, a better evaluation, but it forces you as a supervisor to start coaching and mentoring that employee. So that was one of the changes that we'll be using this year to have a better, fair evaluation process for our staff versus everybody using the same evaluation across, so that it's not necessarily job applicable before, so.
I'd like to talk to you more about that.
Okay. Any questions before we move to the next slide? Yes, sir. Okay, I saw you raising up like I thought you were asking. All right, so on the next thing, we talked about plan next steps, which is some meeting dates. March 23rd is the council meeting, preliminary conversations and input. April 13th is your budget workshop with the manager's presentation of the budget. April 27th is the town council meeting, and there'll be conversation input continued then. May the 11th is your budget workshop number 3. There'll be a public hearing on the budget. May the 18th, council meeting, there'll be a conversation and direction continued. June the 8th is the budget workshop for possible adoption, and on June 22nd is a council meeting and adoption if needed. But all those do offer public input conversations on that in those sessions as well. And then moving to the next slide, general public comments at your regular meeting, if you want those, and those general public comments are required currently at your meeting, so they're welcome to speak on that. Specific public comments on budget at regular meetings, if you want any of that. Public input at your budget workshops, if you want to offer that opportunity. As you can see, we've got several coming up where the public can speak. And also, if you would like for me to host public information sessions with the community on budget input from that to be able to bring back to you. Then your public hearing, which is required, and then the town council direction on that, on any of those topics there that you would like for us to use moving forward. So,
Don't change any of those dates, please.
yes, all right.
I've got my travel schedule built around this. If you change them, I won't be here. I think Darla had said it. So everything you just said, I'm in favor of and you've done a good job of trying to communicate. I think we need to over-communicate, over-ask. Too many times we were blindsided where we thought we were saying, we're building a pickleball court for 3 years, and then the people living there said, we never heard you. I'm like, how did you not hear us? We were open about it. That was shame on us, because they didn't hear us. So what I think we need to maybe swing the pendulum a smidge and go, we want your input. And scream at the top of our lungs. And then if nobody gives us input, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 non-staff people. The town of Weaverville does not want our input, Darla. Get your team out. This was announced. This room should be full. If this room isn't full for the next 8 meetings,
That's a good point.
It's easy to add a public input session or a item on your agenda for your workshops. We can certainly do that.
I think it's a good idea.
Anything, typically a public hearing is held a meeting or two before you adopt. So I do think that I've seen town council really take into consideration public comments that have been made either in general public comment or at the public hearing and adjust some things as a result of that. So y'all are responsive to the public, but we're happy to add whatever you want.
And I think it's a good idea, and I think it's important that the town council members understand that part of that communication is that we have to listen and take that in, because the people are telling us what they're willing to pay for, so, and what they don't want to have to pay for. So we need to make note of that.
But I think we need to be very clear to where they can understand the why. You know, why are we adding police officers or firefighters, or how are we doing these things? And I think that we could do better at explaining the why than what we've done in the past.
so Dee is correct. We owe it to them to listen, but we don't have to do what they suggest. Right? It still falls on us.
Yeah, it's on us.
And Phil's not running for election, so he said, I don't care.
So I'm seeing consensus to add that to public input as an item on your workshop agendas at the end, so that they get the full information.
Not at the
and
beginning.
something that Mayor Root used to do during your regular meeting is have public comment on certain items on your agenda, certain discussion items. So you could add that as well. I'm not suggesting that you want to do that or need to do that, but that is another option. You're probably the only one that remembers.
Well, it was great. And what he did, we talked, then it was allowed to have public comment before we voted. But you can't, like, poor Alan Shepard came up here about the 610, and he didn't know what we were gonna do, and then he had to leave, right? And he had a question, which was then answered during our discussion. So that's, you know, when we did that, I don't know why we undid it, but I thought it was fabulous.
I'm all for it.
Yep.
Yeah, let's do it.
So adding public comment at the, after your discussion on any budget item.
And if council is selective, toward the agenda, we would need to see that early enough to check the box or whatever. There may be things that don't necessarily require a blanket, open discussion. I'm not sure how you did that before, Andrew, but.
All out.
I think, I don't know how, I mean, for sure, there was certain things, I think, I don't know how I'll decide it, but a lot of times, look, there's 5 people here. Nobody spoke
Yeah.
then, right? If I'm on the other side, then,
On public time, I mean,
So
there's
would
3-minute time limit.
would audience members still need to sort of sign the request log at the beginning of the meeting?
Not necessarily, because that falls under general public comment. I think the way I remember it working is that, say for instance, at your meeting on the 23rd, you're gonna get some information
Yeah.
from us on budget.
Yeah.
Y'all are gonna have some conversation, and then you would say, the mayor would say, does anybody wish to talk about the budget?
yeah, I mean, they may not, until we speak and talk, they may not know.
Right.
Yeah,
And sometimes people would sign up and they go, you answered my question. So I think
okay.
the way Jennifer just described it is better.
got it.
To go, hey, Darla and Jeff, do you have any questions now that we've rambled? Jeff, do you have any questions, Jeff? Oh, sorry. No, I can't.
Spoken the bear a little bit. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next meeting.
Anything else on that?
The bullet item about the town manager public information session, is that you're wondering if you should add a altogether new session separate of a council meeting?
Yeah, I mean, if that's some direction that you want me to do, I mean.
You do that pretty regularly already.
Right.
Are there still those on the books for you, or is?
No, I mean, 'cause I do those every quarter, so there wouldn't be one before the budget adoption,
Okay.
but for example, I mean, I wanted to make sure that, I mean, me being the face of the town,
Yep.
which is not a pretty face at all, I wanted to make sure that I was doing my due diligence to meet with the public,
Yeah.
if council didn't have time to meet with the public or anything, so that I could at least bring some input back to you to be able to put in front of you if that was the route we need to go. I mean, that was an option that I was willing to consider if I need to do that, and if we still need to do it both ways, then we can do that as well. I can find time on my calendar to make sure that happens.
So the public notification is on the town calendar. Is there any other channel that we're not tapping to get the word out?
So it goes out to the distribution list that's on our newsletter. It gets put on Facebook. What am I missing, Tamara? Yeah, besides the website, it gets on the website. But so the eFocus newsletter, distribution
Okay.
list, Facebook. We typically post on our bulletin boards. That's not a hugely effective method, but
For those that are not online, they do see it in the monitors,
Yep.
in the hallways.
the monitors at the community center and in the lobby.
Some of
It's
the announcements.
2,230 contacts in the e-newsletter.
Okay.
How many?
2,230?
So half the population of the town.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One of them's got work.
sounds.
Okay, fair enough, like, I get it, Elizabeth doesn't need it, based on our use, okay.
I know the apartment building clubhouses don't want notices, taped to the door or anything like that, which is a huge community. But, the only thing I can think of, and I'm not a big
They won't pay
social
taxes.
media, consumer, but I think Nextdoor is one channel that might, at least my wife talks about it.
I mean, we could certainly send it to the WBA and let them, them distribute. I think you've actually talked to them about budget in the past, so they're typically, the WBA is aware
Well,
of
your
it.
point,
Let
next
them-
door, Weavers on Facebook, the Weaverville for Neighbors Group,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they want.
they don't like us.
They don't.
They type you guys suck. I had an idea to get Scotty's attendance up in his meetings that are without us. Jennifer could make ice cream. Because I would go then. I would go to your meetings, Scotty, if Jennifer made ice cream for your meetings.
I think that it would be a good place to distribute it to, would be the HOAs with the communities that are part of the town.
Heck yeah.
I mean, and we've tried to reach out, I mean, I've talked with Bo and some others, because I do HOA meetings, as part of my meet and greet stuff, but getting a point of contact for their president, who's got their own listserv, and then, getting information, but we've struggled with some of the others of getting contacts for them, good contact.
Well, I know two of them
So,
we can get
okay.
contacts for.
Mhm.
No, but to Andrew's point, snacks are fertilizer.
And Judy would bring cookies to the WBA meetings, I would show up.
Andrew, I'm making ice cream for the Arbor Day Awards, so.
Thank you for that.
Put a snack budget into the budget.
We want a snack budget, yeah, where is the candy? What happened to the candy? We used to have candy. Guys, cut out the candy.
Would it be appropriate to see if anybody has any comments from the audience? Oh, Darla.
Hang on, she's got to record
Did you
you.
mind?
Wait, Darla. Good job.
I think the first thing that needs to be done in terms of getting people from the community to come and comment on the budget, we really need I would call it a Dick and Dot presentation of the budget. In other words, an educational, that's the goal right now, is like, people don't understand the budget. It hasn't been presented in a way, and we're at a point where, with all this growth and all this need, as Councilwoman Young said, you need to explain the why, okay? In other words, you've been working on this. It's kind of like, it's like the public needs a presentation, a PowerPoint, something so they can understand and ask questions, so that they understand the budget and the why, is really the first step, because the budgets in the past have been pretty hard to understand, and so I really see the need for that kind of a conversation. It's an educational presentation almost, for you to really get genuine, comments on it. There's just a lack of understanding why and how it's built, and so it's you do that in the academy to some extent, whatever, but it's kind of, we really need that 101 course in what this package is, and a presentation that's more geared to, I'm trying to make sure the public understands, so that when they're thinking about commenting at a council meeting or a workshop, there's some basic understanding. It's a big assignment, but it's a longer term goal in terms of, you're not gonna get meaningful engagement if they don't understand what the proposal is and how it was put together. So it's a longer term kind of project. I have one specific issue I wanted to raise on the budget as you think about it. There's a tool that other people are using both in Asheville and just recently Hendersonville, and actually throughout the state, transportation bonds that are a public referendum, okay? As you're growing and needing, whether it's a firehouse or, big ticket items, the transportation GO bond just was adopted by Hendersonville by a 2-to-1 margin. And Asheville's done it twice in the last, I think, 10 years apart. And, they are a way that you can tackle, you know, bigger projects, whether it's a greenway or, you know, I think in Hendersonville, they did $10 million. It was for roads, you know, maintenance kinds of issues, they're way behind. ADA compliance issues, and then sidewalks, greenways, you know, so you can get some bigger ticket investments and in a sense relieve some of your, you know, the big ticket items that are gonna eat up your budget when you're growing and you need, you know, some infrastructure, you know, changes. So it's just a question of, it's not this year's budget, but as you look at from here to 2030, why not consider that? Let's look at what Hendersonville has done successfully, and Asheville the same. These have not been heavy lifts, as I understand it, which might surprise you, but they're things people want, you know, in the community. So they're going to vote for it because they want a new recreation facility, they want a new greenway, whatever. So just a different
Thank you.
way to expand your
Appreciate that.
revenue base.
Anybody else?
Figure to Darla's point though, I mean, most years I've been part of the budget or listened to it, you know, there's a sequence of meetings and then there's a set of charts and things that you present, and I don't think it's very dramatically year to year. So to Darla's point, if there are people out there in the community right now that don't understand what a budget looks like, or you can take last year's charts, somebody could, or Darla could, if you know 20 people, do a survey. Really, I mean, hey, here's what we presented last year. We're cart before the horse. You haven't presented it yet because that's the next meeting. But we don't have to wait for that. You could take last year's and say, here's how we presented it. Do you understand? And if they don't understand, put their hand up now before you create it, right? And to me, the bigger thing has been getting more people in a room to actually listen to this stuff. That's been always the challenge. It's not, at least in my opinion, do they understand what they're hearing? If they don't understand, they can put up their hand or ask a question. So if there are people out there, we could do a sanity check now. Hey, here's what the town budget looks like based on last year. Is this something you can interpret and understand? And if they can't, you know, we get our feedback. I don't know how else you get that. You know, Darla, maybe you got some other ideas on how to get that input.
No, maybe,
Okay.
Also, I was going to say, we all know there are a lot of people who have spreadsheet allergies. And, you know, translating the budget into a value for spend, you know, message, I think is more generally consumable than, you know, those of us who like numbers. And, you know, how to do that gracefully with voters, I think is a challenge, but.
There's gotta be something out there.
Yeah, you know, you think about just, you know, pull somebody off the street and ask them, you know, what are you feeling with respect to what we're doing from a budget spend standpoint? They probably won't know what
They're
to
gonna say, how much more am I gonna have to pay?
Yeah, it's like, well, what about the pothole in front of my driveway, or something like that? But, you know, something very specific.
Not picking on what we did, and I know why we did it, but I bet you 9 out of 10 people couldn't tell you how much taxes they pay the town of Weaverville. Because it's combined now with Buncombe
Yeah, that's
County,
right.
and they're gonna look at that number I'm writing the check to
Yeah.
and go, what, you know, I do it once a year, and now it's combined, how much of your hard-earned cash goes to
And
the
then
town?
if you have a mortgage, you don't even see that, I mean, you get a slip in the mail, but it's all bundled in the mortgage, like there's,
Escrow.
I don't cut a check to anybody for my taxes.
Well, you loan them the money throughout the year for free. Interest free. You should not be paying for your insurance and your property. You should get that out of your escrow as quick as you can. and
All
you're
right.
4%.
Let's bring this in.
You're laughing, it's the truth. Do not bundle your insurance and your property tax. Now, you can't do it the first year you get a mortgage, but unbundle it.
So Andrew's economic lessons. So anybody else, I think we need to start to wrap this up. Scotty, you have anything else to say?
No, I'm thinking, we've got some notes and some direction and some do-outs, and like I said, we'll.
Jennifer? Okay.
Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you.
It's good stuff, Scott.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. We appreciate your input. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
The first time my wife, she's like, why are we because you prepay it.
Oh, yeah.